PR is underused by most B2B businesses. And what I mean by that is referring to having a detailed quarterly plan for how a business will strategically leverage PR with defined goals in mind. PR is incredibly effective when it's an integral part of your overall marketing strategy. But still, only a select number in any given niche use it to its full potential. So the purpose of this week's show is so hopefully you can be inspired to reevaluate this incredibly powerful marketing channel and how you could use it to generate more leads and sales. How to create a winning PR and B2B strategy this week on the 414 Live. Hello, good morning. My name's James Rostance and this is the 414 Live, with you each and every Thursday morning at 11:30 to help you as a professional B2B marketer expand and enhance your body of professional knowledge so that you can do better at your job, get better results and very much increase your sales and profitability for your very fine company or indeed agency clients. So today on the show, we're talking about PR and marketing within B2B and specifically creating and executing combined PR and marketing campaigns. And joining me live from Bow in East London, an outright expert in this subject, please welcome Mr. Glenn Matchett. Glenn, good morning.
Morning, James. How are you doing?
Pretty good, I would say, so far. And with an awesome topic for us to discuss this morning. Well, without further ado, could I start things by just asking you, what is your take on the current state of PR and marketing within B2B?
I think it's fair to say everyone's having a bit of a tough time at the minute. Even before we had the COVID crisis drop on us earlier this year, I think the situation with any kind of marketing and PR at the minute is trying to deal with such a fragmented and competitive marketplace. Mm-hmm. There's research that's been done that's shown that we're exposed to up to 10,000 commercial messages a day. Just try and get your head around that for a minute. And the amount of brands and messages that are kind of jostling for your headspace makes it kind of difficult to get your voice heard. So I think that there are certain things you can do to try and rise above all that chatter. But it's a tough time for businesses right now, I think.
But hopefully we can, between us, or particularly with you, I've got what's all being well, a solution to that problem and a battle plan for the way forward, right? So what we've got, you've got a really nice piece that you put out, which is your 5-point plan and strategy, really, isn't it, for combining PR and marketing? And that's what I'd love for you to share with the viewers today so that they can, as I mentioned in the intro, reevaluate and reconsider how they could put together and execute ultimately a combined marketing and PR strategy. So with that in mind, let's start on the first point, which is you want people to make sure that they look at their story first of all, and the bullet point there is what's your story. So could you start by explaining what that is and how we should interpret it?
Yeah, I think absolutely. I think one thing maybe just to say as part of the preamble is that whilst we're looking at B2B today, I think a lot of the principles of marketing are common across B2B and B2C. You're essentially looking to get headspace and share of mind within your customers and potential customers. So I think it's fair to say that a lot of the points that we raised that we'll be talking about this morning kind of are applicable to both B2C and B2B. I think with the plan that we pulled together at Grammatic, it's kind of a high level opportunity for businesses to sort of say, well, how can we get all our ducks in a row in terms of pulling together an effective strategy? And I think, it's actually quite timely in terms of the COVID crisis. It's actually, for a lot of our businesses that we work with, they're actually taking this opportunity to kind of pause and look at their activity and kind of really reassess the value of what they do. So I think whilst today it is tough for business at the minute, there's also a good opportunity to sort of take stock and say, well, what's really working for us and what doesn't work? Um, I think just to kind of start at the beginning, the what's your story element of your brand and your marketing is kind of making sure that you've got a clear idea of who you are as a business, where you fit into the market, what you've got to offer, and really getting a good kind of sense of purpose and tightly defined vision for your business. I like to quote the kind of possibly apocryphal tale of when JFK went to NASA in the 60s, and he went. He was kind of doing his glad handing and meeting all the various people at NASA, and he kind of, as on his way out, he bumped into a cleaner, or I suppose you'd call him a janitor in the States, and he kind of paused and said, what's your job here? And the cleaner kind of, quick as a flash, he said, well, my job's to put a man on the moon. I think it's quite a nice little tale. But I think what it encapsulates is kind of that idea of a vision that you get everybody to buy into. And I think part of your marketing strategy should be about making sure you've got that real sense of purpose and sense of vision, as a core part of what you've got to offer. And I think just to expand a little bit on that, I think we talk about USP, your USP, which is your unique selling point. How do you differ from your competitors? What can you offer that they don't, and how can you become a preferred business for people who are potentially looking for your product or services? I think the way to define your USP, it's all about getting knowledge about the space in which you operate. So you properly research your market, you look at your competitors, you speak to your customers and potential customers, and really try and define what your business positioning is, and then you roll that through into your marketing and PR activity.
Nice. I really like that as a strategy, particularly right now, of using this time to take a quality look at what you as a business are doing, and who, crucially as well, you're targeting. Because a lot of the time that can get put into the not put into the back, but it's rather often neglected. Is that a fair comment?
Yeah, I think absolutely. We talk to a lot of businesses about. We work primarily in creative technology and work with visual effects and animation studios and technology businesses. And often when we have initial conversations with them, they tend to be feature driven with what they're doing rather than benefit driven. And I think that's a real key point, because when you're working on the inside of a business, you can often get excited about developments that you pull together or something that you're releasing without actually putting the customer at the heart of what you do. So that distinction between going out and talking about the features of a product as opposed to what actually is the benefit of what you're offering here, and it's important for businesses to recognize the difference between the two, and also always be aware of focusing in on those benefits they're actually offering, as opposed to just saying what they've launched, and you're not really focusing in on how it actually benefits the end user.
Have you got any other examples? And I did like the one of the JFK piece you mentioned there. And I can totally see how that's a great example of the entire company buying into the overall mission of what they're doing. But in terms of modern day B2B examples, what would be one of your favourites of someone that's maybe reevaluated and has clearly positioned their offering?
Yeah, well, I think. In terms of brand positioning and talking about having a clear vision for your brand and how you deliver that, I think I can give you an example, which is it's a B2C example, but actually it's perfectly applicable to a lot of B2B businesses as well. It sounds rather mundane, but we recently bought a Dyson Hoover, a Dyson vacuum cleaner. Sorry, and it turned out that one of the parts wasn't working on it, which is fine. Okay, you have to deal with these sorts of things. And I got on the phone to Dyson and was on hold for about 15-20 minutes. Fair enough, that happens. Everything's people are busy at the minute. Then unfortunately I got cut off from the call center. So I immediately kind of said a few choice words to myself that are probably unbroadcastable, but I was ready to go through the whole process of of ringing up and sitting in the queue again, sort of to try and get this sorted out. And so within 90 seconds, Dyson had rung me back, and their call center said, "Well, we saved your number. We knew you had a problem. We wanted to call back and sort it out." Now, immediately,
Nice.
the Dyson brand is kind of on a pedestal for me, because I'm thinking, where I was about to sort of go back into IVR hell, on hold, waiting to get through. They, as part of their brand offer, they've got the customer at the center of what they do. So, that call center person rang me back, and everything was sorted out. And now, I'm on here talking to you about it, and kind of sharing that tale, because I think there is a school of thinking that, well, what is a brand, and actually your brand is not about your logo or your strap line or the colors you have on your website or all of those things. The brand is essentially, what does your customer or potential customer think about when they hear your name, and with that Dyson example, they have that kind of that sensibility of having the customer at the center of what they do, kind of run through their business like a stick of rock. So the call center agent rang back, and that is part of their brand offer, as opposed to just being a functional part of their business. So I think that's a really good example of a brand that's doing that sort of thing really, really, really well.
Okay, so how would that maybe be used in a PR campaign, or how does that help with a PR or marketing campaign?
I think with PR, well, for a start, you want to treat your customers properly, and they will become your advocates, and hopefully they'll turn into evangelists. They'll talk about your brand in such a way that they will become a brand champion. I think when we talk about PR, it's not just about, well, can I get coverage in a particular publication, or can I get on BBC News or something like that. It's about all those other elements that feed into that. So whilst you wouldn't necessarily take out that example and say, well, how can we then PR that? Mm-hmm. The very fact that I'm sitting here talking to you about it is kind of a bit of micro PR that will be rippling out. And I'm sure, obviously this broadcast isn't sponsored by Dyson, but I'm sure there's loads of customers who have had that similar experience who'll go away feeling the same thing. I think Amazon's another interesting example. Amazon, for all the downsides of what you would maybe look at from Amazon from a business point of view, it has its fair share of people who don't particularly like it as a business. I think in terms of what it offers, it has the customer at the heart of what they do, and when they introduced returns, when you were returning a product, Amazon was one of the first brands that said, well, send it back to us if you've got a problem. But before that, we'll send you out a replacement. There's that kind of trust that's gone in there to say, well, we'll trust you to send it back, and we'll send out the replacement before you've even sent the return back to us. So there's loads of things like that put your customer at the center of the business that that are really important for your overall brand. Things like Apple as well. Apple, Steve Jobs had this thing about he wanted their customers to be able to use their product straight out of the box. How many times have you bought something and said, "Oh, geez, I've got to charge it for 4 or 5 hours before I can use it"? His mantra was, no. If you're buying an Apple product, you're going to be so excited about it, you want to just switch it on, and you want to start using it straight away. So that is a key part of that brand promise as well.
Okay. Well, what I'm picking up from this is that just having the mindset of going for a PR release one at a time, here, there, and everywhere, it isn't the right way to go about it. And I can understand that that's for some marketers that might be the way that they've done it up until now. Yeah. So underneath all of this, then you've got an overall What would be the terminology you would use to describe it? I know you've touched on brand there, but is it company principles? What terminology is best?
I think it's purpose. You know, having that sense of purpose that you can get both your customers, but also your employees to buy into as well. I think it's I mean, just to your point there about kind of a sporadic approach to PR. I mean, PR, in my experience, it's not really like a tap. You know, you can't just switch it on and off. It's about nurturing relationships with, you know, when you're talking about the publications and the journalists that you want to speak to in any given area. You know, it's about relationships, and it's about getting to know what's being written about, getting an understanding of, you know, your space, as it were, and then finding out who is writing about it and what the right publications are. You know, there's an old adage in PR, you know, some approaches are a kind of spray and pray approach, where you will spray out a news release or a press release about a product and then sit there and cross your fingers, you know, and hope that you'll land some coverage. That, in our experience, isn't the best way to approach it. It's about nurturing targeted relationships, especially in the B2B field, where you're talking to the journalists and the publications that will really be beneficial to your own brand and your own company.
Okay, well, on your guide, I've got my notes here from it. So point number 1 is making sure that you've got your story locked down, and your second point is on getting your message out. So what's your take on that? How does that get interpreted?
Okay, we can on talk about that. Just I wanted to make just another quick point about branding, and I think it's really important to understand what you've got to offer your customers and the marketplace, you know, and understand, you know, where kind of where you fit in. I mean a good example of this is Kodak. Kodak, who used to be kind of the big name on the high street when it came to getting your films developed and your processing photos. Now, Kodak were very, very anti-digital. They didn't really see the future as being sort of digital photography, and they really kicked quite hard against that. Even though actually Kodak were the first company to develop the functional digital camera. But because of that, they really lost. They lost a march on that market, and they ended up going bankrupt. And I think, you know, when it comes to your brand purpose and, you know, where you fit into the market, Kodak were essentially in the memories business. They weren't in the photography business. They were about capturing people's memories and giving them to them in such a way that was great for the consumer. So whilst they were kicking against this idea of digital photography, they fundamentally misunderstood what business they were in. You know, and I think that's just quite a good example of, you know, really understanding what you are as a business and kind of what you've got to offer. So once you've done the kind of the audit on, you know, what's our USP, how do we fit in against our competitors, you know, how do we get a share of market here, then it is about looking at the channels that you've got to go to market with. Now, we said earlier, there's up to 10,000 messages a day jostling for space in your head. So what are the best routes for you as a company to get your message out? And I think, you know, whilst a single-minded approach is good from a brand point of view, you should look at all the various channels available to you, from, you know, PR through digital marketing, your website, social media, webinars, all that kind of thing, to work out, well, I can get my message out through these different channels. And I think, you know, when you're going through that process, I think it's really important to not just tick boxes. But what I mean by that is, you know, there can be a tendency to look at activity as, well, I've done that now, tick, what else do I do? In the same way as a PR release, I've done the press release, so that's the job done. It's not really about that, and it's about making sure you do things properly. Just to give you a real world example of that's quite timely at the minute. A lot of the businesses that we work with are quite reliant on events. So they will have live events to promote their products, global events. We go to NAB, which is the big broadcasting event in Vegas. There's one in the SIGGRAPH, which is the big event for visual effects. There's a media and production show. There's a whole range of events that are in the calendar which have now all been kiboshed because of COVID. So you've got loads of marketing managers sitting around thinking, right, okay, we did have this budget planned for this. What do we do as an alternative? Now, a lot of or a number of companies are turning to webinars, which are a great great opportunity to reach your customers and get your message out there. But I've seen a lot over the past 3 or 4 weeks that essentially are just ticking a box, and they haven't really thought about how do we actually deliver this webinar in such a way that will be effective for our business. And with webinars, there's a whole process you should go through in terms of promoting them in advance, having decent content, you're properly engaging with the audience, listening to the questions, following up with participants afterwards, editorializing the content so you can then push it out on other channels like here on LinkedIn, or perhaps creating a press story out of it. So I think there's it's incumbent on kind of marketeers and kind of PR professionals to kind of look at what they're doing in the round and make sure they're doing it properly, as opposed to just paying lip service to it.
Okay, so with the actual content you're pushing out there, do you have any favourite examples of content to push or promote even?
Yeah. Well, I think to give you it's a rather kind of general example, but a lot of the businesses that we work with, people like Side Effects who create software for visual effects artists, and there's a number of others in that space. They look to add value. I think this is the general point to make as well about marketing and PR. There's it's important to go out and add value to the market in which you're in. Don't kind of just go out and look for customers and try and hoover people up from the without actually putting something back in, first of all. So some of the webinars that those companies are offering, they're giving training and tips and advice and insight, not just about their own business, but about kind of the broader industry in which they operate. I think that's a really important point. It will pay back in dividends to be out there saying, well, I can share my knowledge with you, and here's my take on things, and that is good PR for your business, because actually you will be adding value to potential customers and existing customers who will then kind of remember your brand and kind of put you in a category of, well, these guys they give, as well as looking at being a potential customer of theirs.
With you. So, I'm certainly picking up from this. The process of offering tangible value up front through your marketing endeavours, and that's what you're putting your focus on. Is that?
I think that's certainly part of it. You've obviously got your own brand messages to go out there as well. Mm-hmm. But I think looking to see where you can add value from a business point of view to potential customers or people within your industry is a good way to go.
And I suppose really an example of that is exactly what you've done with your 5-point strategy report for marketing and PR, where you're offering value, and that's your marketing tool, which works. Nice. Have you got any other examples of other industries or other sectors where you thought they've done a really nice job in maybe packaging content, which they've then set about pushing through marketing and PR channels? What stood out for you?
I think this is a little bit of an odd example, and again, it's more on a B2C basis. But I don't know if you remember the launch of Greg's vegan sausage roll last year.
Yeah.
When I don't know if you're a vegan, James, or you're meat eater, but I guess not really not really relevant. But I think in terms of when they launched that vegan sausage roll, they were. Their marketing and PR behind that was absolutely fused together. So their PR team were fantastically reactive to the conversation that was happening around the vegan sausage roll. So I don't know if you remember, but Piers Morgan, love him or loathe him, he was came out very critical. Oh my God, vegan sausage roll, can you imagine anything so disgusting? And it's like, I think they tweeted back something like, oh, we've been expecting you, peers, because they were ready to engage in that conversation and create sort of content and momentum around the overall launch of that product. I think one of the other things that they did from memory was they packaged up the vegan sausage roll in a parody of an iPhone box. So they had the beautiful iPhone type box where you pull the lid off. It had the vegan sausage roll inside it, which was just a brilliant bit of kind of strategy in terms of pulling together content in a coherent way across the way they're talking to journalists, the way they're advertising it, the way they were responsive to PR. And I think having that coherent approach to marketing PR is important as well. So you have that tone of voice and have that kind of sensibility through all your activity.
Yeah, I like that as an example. In fact, what you're using that as an example and showing how actually, in fairness, B2C does nail that. That's very much in keeping with what Joe Walton, who was on the show last week, friend of the show, MD of Fight or Flight, he really likes the fact that B2C do go all out, and they are really good at certain elements, but equally, B2B marketers can do really well if we look for inspiration from them and basically take the best bits of what they're doing.
Absolutely. I mean, just to refer back to the Dyson story at the start of the start of the podcast. I mean, one of our clients is called Hive Managed Solutions, who they deal with data centers. They're based in Brighton, and one of their absolute core of their business is how they treat their customers. And they have that level of support with their individual customers that. They don't have them sitting on hold for ages. They have one-to-one relationships with them, and you can take the principles of what's happening in B2C and absolutely drive it through B2B communications as well.
So with your next point then, so point 3 on is the competitive landscape. What do you encourage people to do with that then? No, this is a shoot. Oh, are we good to move on to the third part? Because no, I'm jumping ahead of my.
We've got 2.5 hours, haven't we, James?
Yeah, exactly. We've actually found that because we're doing this under COVID, because we're using the Apple AirPods for the audio, we're limited to an hour because otherwise we just lose sound.
Okay. I'll talk a bit faster then. Although no, we're not quite ready to move on. I think one of the other things that I wanted to mention about getting your message out there was social media, because social media is such a key aspect of any company's communications strategy. And I think from a B2B point of view, obviously here on LinkedIn, it's a really good opportunity to look at conversations that are happening around your business area and industry and connect with people. And I think that's great. I think one of the things at Grammatic that we commit to is that social media has got to live and breathe. Mm-hmm. You don't just do social. Do social. I think that's another trap that businesses can fall into. They tick a box. They say, well, have you done your post today? Yeah, we've done it. All right, tick that box. But actually, social media is kind of a living and breathing organism. You need to get properly your sleeves rolled up, involved in conversations, respond to your customers, engage with content. Don't just sort of be pushing out your own content saying, aren't we great? This is what we've done this week. It's about again, adding value into the marketplace. Looking at what we were talking about earlier. Can you give tips and hints and insights into your business? Can you be out there talking about how can you do things better? You're right, absolutely. The 5-point checklist that we pulled together for marketing PR at Grammatic is something that we hope will add value for potential customers. If they end up becoming a client of ours, that's great. I'll be happy with that. But at the same token, if they take it away and they find it useful, then that's great as well. So I think social media, from a B2B point of view, it should be core to any activity. Getting a sort of fundamental understanding of the different platforms, how you maybe speak slightly differently on TikTok versus Facebook versus Instagram, which is more visually led. Using video, everyone's walking around with a 4K camera in their pocket these days. That wasn't the case even a couple of years ago. You can really create high quality video that you can share online, on Twitter, on LinkedIn, that is more engaging than just banging up a text post or a post with an image on it and hoping for the best. I think there's a real strategy there that's important to tie in with how you go to the market with your messaging. And other things, like using hashtags, having clear calls to action with your posts. There's loads of little, tips and tricks that you really need to kind of rigorously push through all your communications. And I think your social media is a good one to have in your heart of your overall strategy.
Nice.
I think. Sorry, James. Just before we go on to the competitive landscape, I did just want to mention. The idea of partnership marketing and PR, because I think this is another opportunity that B2B businesses should capitalize on, and often they don't do that. We have another thing with Grammatic.
Sorry, Glenn, that's the DHL driver.
That's all right. No worries. I thought it was my 10-minute warning.
No, no.
So with partnership marketing, we have a mantra at Grammatic, which is align and amplify. And a customer's voice is often stronger than your own. And what I mean by that is, rather than going out and talking about yourself on LinkedIn or through PR marketing, can you use your existing customers, be that a case study or a story or a launch that you have put into practice to facilitate their business, that you then go out and use for marketing and PR purposes? And I think partnership marketing is a real key tool that businesses don't use it enough. And I think the beauty of it is that you will benefit from it, but your customer will benefit from it as well. If they're out talking about their business and how using your services has enabled them to do X, Y, or Z, that's a really strong way to PR your business. And I think, as I say, a customer's voice is often stronger than your own. Is a mantra we have at Grammatic to sort of say, well, how can we amplify what we're doing here, and filling in the customers or clients, their own customers, is often a good way of doing that. And just one final point, James. Sorry, just before we move on to the competitive landscape, because that's important as well. But I think businesses should use their staff more, in terms of trying to use them to become, or engage their staff more, rather than use is probably the wrong term, but you try and get your staff on board to become advocates for what you do. Try and get them to become your brand champions. I mean, there are there's loads of stats out there about this, but on average, your employee will have each employee will have 5 times more connections than a corporate account. So already you've got an opportunity there to properly go out and harness them as a communications tool or part of your overall communications mix as well. Try and turn your company into an army of marketeers and PR evangelists is a key potential tool as well for businesses.
I think those are 2 really good extra points there in terms of, on this point of getting your message out. So partnership marketing and using, well, not using, is a better word than that. Using your staff.
I think it's about engagement. I've been through the mill with loads of companies who their staff are disengaged, and they if they don't particularly like their work, you're gonna find it hard for them to be advocates for your business. So there is kind of an internal comms job that needs to be done before you can do the external PR, and obviously your staff will need to be kind of happy. And there's a whole company culture thing there, and a whole other piece about making sure your staff, there's a wellness and happiness for your staff in the first place before they'll go out and be evangelical about your business. But I think once you get those blocks in a row, absolutely, trying to find out how your staff can be evangelists for your business is a great route to go. I mean, to give you an example, I used to work at MPC, which is a visual effects studio. And often it was great to get the staff like talking about their work and showing their work, and that was often a good way of online or events or conferences, and that's a good way of just getting people out to sort of see or getting your staff out so people can see what sort of person works at a particular business, or how they fit in, or how they articulate what that business is like. So I think engaging your staff is definitely a key plank in an overall strategy for marketing and PR.
Perfect. At this point, we've only got about 8 minutes left, so we're going to have to squash the remainder into just so that we know what we're aiming towards. Do you need to say hello quickly to Charlotte, Shushmita, and Mark, who are watching right now? Hello, you guys, and to Ryan as well, friend of the show. If you've got any questions as well, watching live right now on LinkedIn Live, please do put them in the comments section, and I will squeeze those in and put them to Glenn for a live Q&A. And we'll see what magic he comes back with. So yeah, if you have any questions about your marketing strategy, actually, in fact, make it about you, because we can do a live kind of case study Q&A. So what help do you need in understanding, planning your PR and marketing strategy, and what barriers are you concerned about? All right, Glenn, back to you then. So next on the awesome 5-point but strategy plan that you've got. Next up is competitive landscape. Let's talk about that. So
I think there is this is really important. I think for businesses to look at, to have their head above the parapet, and look at what their competitors are doing. And again, I've worked with other businesses in the past who've not been great at doing this, and it's always the first thing we'll say to new clients is, well, what have you got to offer that's different to the other business in your space, and what are they doing? And there's some really, really simple things that everyone in the marketing and PR space should do to facilitate this. One is you go onto your competitors and follow all their social media, find out what they're talking about, find out, and find out when they're being talked about in the press. I mean, there's a really simple thing on Google called Google Alerts. Hopefully most people are aware of it, but if not, I think if there's one thing to do after this podcast, would be to go and set up a Google Alert for your competitors, and with that, you'll get any coverage that they have online. We'll get fed through your inbox. You can see the type of thing that they're doing, and then kind of see where you fit in alongside that, or as a counterpoint to that. And I think it's not about plagiarizing or ripping off ideas or anything like that. It's about having that coherent and comprehensive knowledge of the space in which you operate, so that you can you can place your business best within that. I always think with marketing and PR especially, it's good to have a journalistic approach, and really try and get into the detail and really listen to what people are saying about you and your competitors, and go in and follow their social media and get those Google alerts, and really think quite deeply about how do we fit in alongside that? Are they cheaper than us? Are they better than us? Or are they doing video on their social? Or how often are they posting? All of what conferences are they speaking at? Are they doing any advertising? All of that kind of stuff is fundamental to how you operate within the market. None of us work in a bubble, apart from the COVID bubble, but that's a different story. But I think when it comes to how you work as a business, you're competing against other people. So other business. So what are they offering that's better or different to what you've got to offer?
Right, and just so that we're clear for everyone, the Google, what was the name of the actual service again? Sorry, Google Alerts, was it?
If you Google Alerts,
that was it.
You'll go there and you'll be able to put it. It's a really useful service. Obviously, it doesn't cost anything, and it's just building up your market intelligence, so you can see, well, okay, they're doing that way, we're going to do it differently to that, or they're cheaper. Is that should we cut our prices? How are they selling? What sales messages? And I think, as I say, it's not about necessarily seeking inspiration. It's about having that coherent knowledge of the marketplace. So
knowing what's going on. Yes, and knowing what's going on. So Google Alerts then is the thing that should be used. You know what? since you mentioned that, yes, we used to use that, but I haven't for a while. So I'll put my hand up there and say, right, yes, that needs fixing. Good tip. On the questions, if you let's squeeze one quickly in. This is from Gamdan. He asks, how can I specifically measure the success of a PR campaign?
Yeah, I mean that's a really good question from Gamdan. I think it's you can obviously look at when a piece lands, whether or not you get increased traffic to your website, or if there's clicks through from that particular publication, that you can see that growth that's being driven by that PR activity. I think it's also fair to say that it's not an exact science, and you're really often you're buying into philosophy because you should be out there trying to push your brand through as many different channels as possible. And it's often the case, and we've had brands in the past that I've worked with that they will have an article that's placed about them in February, but someone will come into become a new customer in July because they saw that article. They've got that share of mind, and the payoff is further down the line. So I think for markets for all businesses really, there is a certain amount of from a PR point of view of buying into the philosophy of this is the right thing to do for our business, and getting this coverage is going to be right for us. Of course, you will be able to, off the back of that, make it accountable by saying, well, I've got this piece of coverage. Am I getting click-throughs? Am I seeing new customers come through? And this, obviously get into the detail of putting in tracking links and all that kind of stuff. So there is a way of trying to get into the absolute detail of it. But I think overall, you're buying into the philosophy of it being a good thing to do for your business, which it is, of course.
With you, okay. Mark Barfoot has nice things to say. In short, you're doing a great job, I think, is the main takeaway from that. Mark, thank you very much. Equally, Gamdan follows on from his question, and is it better to outsource or do it himself?
That's a good question. That's a slightly loaded question. Gamdan,
it is, yeah.
I think he definitely should use Grammatic as an agency. Is the short answer. I think there is a you can do it in house, and I think there's obviously benefits from doing that as well. Being part of your team and feeling properly integrated with your overall business objectives. What I would say from an agency point of view is that certainly for us in our niche, we are out there in our market talking to journalists, talking to publications day in, day out, and we've got those relationships built up. And I think any of our customers our clients that come to us, they can plug into that straight away. And marketing and PR, or PR especially, it's about relationships, and about having a relationship with those journalists and having that understanding. So I think whilst you can do it in house, I think there is an added dimension that a good PR agency can give you to your activity as well. For us at Grammatic, our philosophy is to try and plug into your business almost like an extension of your business. So we don't kind of see ourselves on the outside. We try and plug in, align ourselves to your business goals, and have a real, be an extension of your marketing and PR team. So I think whilst you can do it in house, I think there's definitely an additional dimension that a good PR agency can add to your activity as well.
Solid answer, actually, and I like that you prefaced the way that you prefaced that the answer rather nice. Okay, we should move on then. Yeah, we've got 2 more points to squeeze in between now and the end of the show. Here we go. Yep. So success, although to be fair, we've already started covering that, haven't we? The next element is, what does success look like? Yeah. And as you've said there, it's about how you described tracking responses in relation to a specific piece of activity.
I think that's right, James. I think the other thing to say about success is knowing where you want to get to on a journey. You need to know what your destination is, and doing things that aren't accountable or measurable. You should always try and build in that idea. Well, if we can't measure 4 or 5 pieces of press in the right publications, the goal is to get those pieces of coverage. So that's that ticked. Or we want to get this product launch and we want to sell X number of units, or we want to get our brand awareness to go from 15 to 20%, or whatever the criteria may be. But I think it's about having that roadmap in place, and because I think it's often, or it's not really an acceptable place to be, where you kind of do a piece of activity over sort of 6 months, and at the end of it, everybody looks at each other and says, "Well, did it work or not? I don't really know." I think it's a place you shouldn't really find yourself in. So having those tangible measurements of success is really important as part of your activity.
Perfect. Okay. Rob Cobble actually has just jumped in with a very on-point question right here. He thinks that sometimes business forces us to drive for immediate results. So his question to you is, would you say that a longer view approach of brand influence would be the better approach? And if so, how can you influence that change in mentality? Good question.
Yeah, so I think it's Rob talking about marketing and PR, or both. I think, I think there is a there is a tendency to look for immediate results with any activity that you do from marketing and PR point of view. I think often the accountants within a business will look at it as a cost rather than an investment. And I think in terms of pushback from Rob's point of view, it's trying to sell the benefits of your activity over and above the immediate sales that you may or may not get in off the back of it. And I think you need to have a short, medium, and long-term strategy with your activity. So, for example, looking at multi-channel activity with Google AdWords, for example, if you do a Google AdWords campaign, you can track really quickly whether or not that's working or not for you as a business. You can say, well, are people clicking through? Are they going through to purchase? But then there are the maybe other types of measurement, like brand awareness, like the slightly less immediate, I would call them pointy impacts that are still valuable to a business. And I think it's about PRing it internally, and getting buy-in at board level, or from whoever you need to in the business, to understand the job that marketing and PR does over and above just drive immediate sales.
Perfect. Right, I think we've just about got enough time to squeeze in the last point, fortunately, before, and it's about keeping it fresh, your activity.
I think I mean, this is, again, it's a common sense one, but if something's not working for you, if something doesn't work, bin it off. Stop doing it. There's that Albert Einstein quote, about the definition of madness is doing the same thing over and over and again and expecting different results. If you as a marketer or a PR person thinks that just doing the same thing again and again, eventually you'll get a cut through, it's not going to work. So that, I think, give yourself a bit of slack. Look at other opportunities to get your message out there. Try things that are different. Don't rest on your laurels. I think a lot of businesses often get into a rut with marketing and PR, and it's, you ask them the question, well, why are you doing that? And they say, well, we're doing that because that's what we do. And I thought, well, that's not really a good enough answer. You really need to assess the impact of your activity, and if something's not working, try something different. It's about not resting on your laurels, and I think being open to other opportunities. So keeping it fresh is important as well.
Great stuff. All right. Well, I guess it would be nice to have a what's the word? Condensed summary. So, what would you like people to have as their takeaway from all of this today?
I think, I mean, in a nutshell, it would be, don't rest on your laurels. Don't just sit and think what you're doing is enough. I think adopting a journalistic approach to your activity, really getting into the detail of it, looking at the competitive landscape, and being open to try new activity to try and get your trying to sharpen up your marketing and PR. So I think overall it's about not resting on your laurels, and questioning, question what you're doing, question yourself, and you kind of make sure what you're doing has an impact. I also think, sorry, James, I don't want to give you too convoluted an answer, but I also don't believe in a lot of navel gazing. I think often some businesses can get into a position of, I don't know if we do that, and should we, and they analyze things to the nth degree. I think the kind of the space that we live in now, with so many different channels and so many different routes to market, there is an opportunity to try different things without it necessarily being, the be all and end all for your business. You can try things. You can dip your toe in the water with things. Why not go and try a webinar if you've not done a webinar before? Prepare for it properly and do it. See how it works. And I think being open to those new ideas, not resting on your laurels, there'll be the takeaways for me. Hopefully, that's not too convoluted an answer, but.
I think it's awesome. And actually, Rob Cobble has just jumped in with a brilliant 5-word summary right there. Legacy, the enemy of progress. Oof. I thought that was quite fitting. Yes, nice. Rob, thank you very much for that. And hello to Agnes Dezine as well, also watching. Right, that brings us pretty much to the end of the show. I would like to, just before we do go, is to say, if you've enjoyed watching thus far, please do share this to your timeline. This is something I always forget to mention at the end of the show. Really appreciate the likes, comments, and questions you've been putting. But yeah, please could you share it to your timeline so that other people can get on board with the 414. Well, Glenn, back to you though. Thank you ever so much for joining me on the show today. This has been fun and educational at the same time.
Glad to hear it, James.
Thanks so much.
To be of service.
I really appreciate that. Glenn Matchett, live from Bow in East London. Thank you very much for joining me this morning. All right.
Thanks,
and indeed, if you've enjoyed watching, then please do subscribe to the show by, here we go, time for web address on screen, visiting the 414.net for all subscription options, as well as for checking out previous episodes. And yes, mentioning the other point, please do share this to your timeline on LinkedIn, because goodness knows the platform will be so much better for more good content, because we do put a lot of work into the show, and equally we have a lot of really stellar guests on the show, and as is per the tagline, it's insights and wisdom from the greatest and most interesting minds in B2B marketing. There we go. Well, look, I'll be back here same time next week. My name's James Rostance, and this is the 414 Live.